Yuffie sat with hands fisted on her knees. She bit her lower lip. Her fingers opened and closed reflexively. She shifted on her chair. She lifted her heels, then her toes, then one foot at a time. No matter what she did, she couldn't get comfortable. Eventually, she dropped her head onto her chest and let out a long, whooshing breath.
This sucks. This totally sucks.
The steady beep, beep, beep was a poor reply.
I hate the smell of antiseptic. It stings the inside of your nose. Am I right? Of course I'm right. Why can't they make it smell nice, like strawberries or chocolate? Hospitals should smell like chocolate and doctors' offices should smell like strawberries. Or baking bread. Everyone would feel a lot better no matter what kind of bad news they were getting if they could smell freshly baked bread as they heard it.
Beep, beep, beep.
Do you remember when I was 5 and I thought it'd be really cool to see if I could jump from our roof to the neighbors? I waited until everyone was out because I thought you'd all tell me it was dumb and lock me in my room or something. You found me on top of the broken rain barrel. I had 15 stitches and a broken arm. When she got back from the city, Aerith said I was lucky Dr. Sweet was around to patch me up while she wasn't. I thought it was more lucky you didn't burst my eardrums with all your yelling. I was thinking about that the day I found you up in the mountains. You were 17 and thought you were so cool, and that I was just some stupid little kid when I was a very mature 8 but nearly 9-year-old. You were all, I want to be alone, and I was all, can't you be alone with me watching in the background? And you were all, gunblade training is serious business, and I was all, fine, but I'll be tailing you and staying out of sight so you can't send me home. Although you weren't in room to hear that last part. It was lucky I did follow you though, because you, Mr. Too Cool for School, totally screwed up and picked a ledge that totally collapsed under the weight of you and your manly gunblade. I wonder whether you got as panicked as I did when you found me on that rain barrel. I was pooping bricks, I swear. The dust cloud I kicked up when I ran back to Travers Town could have blocked out the sun easily. If I could have hoisted Aerith over my shoulder and carried her back with me, I would have. Lucky for all of us that Sid's gummy ship wasn't in the workshop for once. Pile of junk. Good thing he can't hear me, huh? The way he goes on about that ship, you'd think it was the best invention in the history of the universe, instead of what it is. A bunch of spare parts held together with spit and hope. We both made it through those times, and 1,000,001 other times we nearly died. We are well practiced. Right now, this, totally not a biggie. Not even a middly. It's a smallie. Smaller than a smallie. You're gonna be fine. Totally.
Her hands hurt under the weight of her body. She realized she was sitting on them and lifted each thigh in turn. Her palms tingled as she extracted them and allowed blood to flow back into them, turning her skin from mottled white to bright red. Not as bright as blood. Not as red as blood from a head wound. Not as white as bone poking through flesh, or the flashing lights which had freckled her vision when she turned the corner of the castle courtyard and realized it was possible for one person to defeat 50 Heartless alone, at a price. Whatever else she saw in life, she would always remember the image of a body half in, half out of the fountain, bobbing like a piece of driftwood, anchored only by that legendary grip on his gunblade. If he hadn't been holding the weapon, and its weight hadn't anchored him to the side, he would have submerged and drowned before she found him.
Come on, Squall. Rise and shine already,
she said, hating the pleading note in her voice.
Wake up, you're okay. All your bones are back together and your skull is totally covered by your scalp now. You can wake up anytime. Joke's over. You're always crappy at jokes and this is the worst. Come on, Squall. Aren't you gonna correct me and tell me it's Leon? Wake up, you idiot!
Yuffie?
The voice was light, female, and behind her. Yuffie whirled, nearly tipping over her chair. She swung precariously on 2 legs for a moment, arms windmilling.
Whoa!
Aerith stood in the doorway, a scraggly silhouette. Her hair was coming loose from her ponytail. When she stepped into the light of the sickbay, Yuffie could see the cup of coffee in her hand and the bags under her eyes.
Hey. I came to ask how he was doing, only you weren't here, so I figured... You know.
Yuffie spiraled a hand.
You hear stories about people in comas being able to hear voices from, like, the outside and junk. I thought maybe, if I talked enough, I can talk the hind legs of a donkey, right? So I figured, hey, I'll annoy him awake, or something.
She trailed off. Aerith nodded.
How are you doing?
Me? Fine. Peachy keen. Totally kosher. 100% okie dokie.
The sides of her mouth hurt as she attempted to hoist them into her hairline. Aerith obviously didn't believe a word of her declaration.
Yuffie.
Yuffie's smile faltered. Like a hairline crack in an ice sculpture, it destabilized her whole face. She turned away to hide it. Turning away from Aerith, however, meant looking back at the bed and the silent occupant, stuck all over with wires and nodules connected to monitors. Their beeping and the rise and fall of his chest were the only indicators he was even alive. He could have been a corpse laid out in a morgue. Aerith's healing magic had smoothed away all his wounds, leaving his body perfect, apart from that one scar he refused to let her heal. At first, they had thought he was just recovering from the healing. Magic really took it out of people, even if they were the recipient, not the healer. Then, as hours turned to days, and the days stretched on, it became apparent that this was no ordinary slumber. Aerith had to admit that the brain was far more complicated than anyone really understood, and once more cursed the fact that the heartless invasion had left her healing training incomplete. She had scoured the libraries of Radiant Garden, trying to find a solution to this problem, but had no luck. All they could do was wait.
He looks wrong. In that bed, he looks wrong.
He does?
Yuffie shook her head.
He looks smaller somehow. He'll wake up.
She aimed for certainty, but her voice trembled. She wanted to sound sure of herself. She was usually great at that. The sky could be black with Heartless, and she could come up with a flippant remark about what they'd have for dinner after they finished them all. This time, she couldn't pull it off as well as usual. She shut her eyes, unable to look at Aerith when she asked.
Won't he?
The clink of ceramic on metalwork surface echoed as Aerith set down her mug. She put her arms around Yuffie, and Yuffie didn't resist. Instead, she raised both hands to hold Aerith's arm, like some little kid, not a seasoned warrior and all-around fantastical ninja princess. She barely remembered her mom anymore, but thought this might be how it felt if you had a nightmare and your mom came into your room at 4 a.m. to comfort you.
He'll come back to us.
When?
You know I can't answer that, Yuffie.
Yuffie sniffed. Damn it, she was crying.
This sucks. This totally sucks.
It does.
They stayed locked together, each absorbed in her own thoughts, as the beep, beep, beep of the monitors continued long into the night.